Hello, sports fans. Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Thank you for stopping by our YouTube channel. Make sure to hit the subscribe and notifications toggle so you never miss a thing. All of our content up here every day. Looking forward to it. Thank you, and we'll see you on the radio.
Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by the Hard Truth Distilling Company in Brown County, Indiana.
So for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, time!
3 on the way. Oh! It went in! It went in! And Indiana wins the ball game!
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Float game for the win! Ayler's gone. Goodbye. Touchdown, Indy. Woo! IU! America! They got a football team now!
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
You know that I'm the cream of the crop!
Now, from the Hard Truth Studios, here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios on this Tuesday, and we are honored to have Scotty Davenport with us, the former coach at Bellarmine University down in Louisville, who transferred from Division II up to Division I, and man, should have been in the NCAA tournament the first year. I don't want to talk about that because I'm still mad about that for you. But how are you doing, brother? I appreciate you so much, Mr. Davenport.
I'm Mr. Coyle. I'm feeling the pressure. I mean, you set me up to follow Mike DeCourcy?
Oh, what are you talking? We were lauding your virtues before. What are you talking about?
No, I thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I'm not just saying this. There's a national championship banner or graphic behind me, right? Only 4 of those starters were from Indiana, so we'll just leave that part right in there.
I remember when you were building that. Well, first of all, for those of you that if you don't know, Scotty is known in the Louisville community because he was I didn't know you were a graduate assistant at U of L. I knew you were an assistant, but I was looking, I'm like, oh, be darn, he snuck that one in there. But before he became head coach at Ballard High School in Louisville, where he just dominated the Louisville basketball scene. I remember great games. I went to Floyd Central coming over. He had Allen Houston and just some incredible teams. Then was an assistant at Louisville under Hall of Famers Denny Crum and Rick Pitino, 2 greats. How many did you win 2 national titles in your run?
1.
Or 1. Still got that ring, baby. Still got that ring, though.
4 Final Fours at Bellarmine, a Final Four at Louisville, a national championship. You bring up the Ballard Floyd Central games, the great Joe Hinton. That's Pat Graham against Allen Houston.
Yes, it was amazing.
How good could that be in high school?
I mean, I saw it. I was there. It was amazing to watch.
I mean, wow. And Joe Hinton, it would be impossible for anybody to respect Joe Hinton more than I do.
I love Joe because I learned being a student there. I wasn't good enough to play basketball at Floyd, but I remember seeing him after a regional game in a hotel. He was just sitting on a floor after he lost a game, and he was just sitting on a floor. And I'm like, I've never seen a 50-something-year-old man sitting on the floor. He was just, it ate him up. He was such a competitor. Off the court, nicest guy you'll ever talk to. On the floor, he might eat your arm if you stick it up there.
I'm the president of the Joe Hinton fan club, so you're talking to the wrong guy.
I love it. No, I loved every bit of it. It was, but it was, those old days were so fun. I mean, that doesn't happen a lot in high school anymore because so many guys go off to prep schools and that. But man, those were great battles. There were plenty of others that you had. How many state championships? Did you win some state titles?
Well, and nobody, again, admires Indiana high school basketball more than I do. It's a great story. My first year as a head coach at Ballard, 1987, we lose in overtime in Rupp Arena to Clay County. The following January, we played Clay County in Broadbent Arena, over at the fairgrounds in an LIT semifinal. They beat us in double overtime. In March of '88, we beat Clay County in Freedom Hall. Those 3 games were played in front of over 45,000 people. If you add up 1 overtime, 2 overtimes, a regulation game, and then you step back, and we had players from the most affluent areas of Louisville. We had players from the west end of Louisville. I'm from over on the south end by Churchill Downs. We're playing Clay County in those 3 games. As mountain of a team as can be. They're coaches from the mountains. Families are coal miners. 3 games, 3 overtimes, 45,000 people. If you add it all up, the score was tied.
That's
And
how you like it.
I always said, and when I recruited throughout Indiana, they go out and they compete. And when the ball goes up, it's pure basketball. And I think that's the way it should be.
Yeah, you
kids leaving
recruited.
schools, this is the way it should be.
Well, you were very smart. I remember when you moved on to what Bellarmine was a Division II school, and then you and like Southern Indiana were having these battles, both great programs, quickly elevated Bellarmine to a national power, winning national titles, going to the Final Four. It was like a yearly expectation. I became a fan. I had no relationship to Bellarmine. I knew who you were, but I just loved what you were doing, and I became a fan, loved following Bellarmine. But you made a point. You recruited Indiana pretty hard. Lots of Indiana guys on your teams. Not that this is about Indiana, just a point of emphasis.
Well, the reason they haven't played in such high-level competition, their poise was second to none. In other words, if you advance in Division II and you're hosting a regional to go to the Elite Eight, and there's 5,000 people and it's sold out, Braden Hobbs and Jeremy Kendall and Luke Sprague and Justin Benedetti, they've played in those games. They played in those games in sectionals. They played them in semi-states. They totally understand playing in a very high level, and they play with incredible poise. And that's why we just fell in love. And you go on and on and on. Tyler Jenkins from Indianapolis. So we've had kids all over the state of Indiana, and that's the reason why.
A lot of Jeff fans out here watching. A lot of guys from Louisville follow us, and I love that because I love the mix. With Rick Bozich is on with me each Wednesday, so we keep the mix of, because it's the greatest. To me, I grew up in Southern Indiana, and then because you've got the mix of Southern Indiana and Kentucky, I love that yin and yang kind of thing because it was a pull back and forth.
The Jeff Floyd Central Ballard games, Jeff and Ballard, Floyd Central Ballard. I scheduled those games every year because you couldn't simulate that to get ready for postseason. And I will tell you, one of the greatest high school games I've ever been involved in my life. And now that my career is over, it'll go down forever. Jim Ruther, our tremendous AD at Ballard, came to me the 1st of February. He said, I want you to listen to me. Don't interrupt me. I want you to listen. And I said, yes, sir, Mr. Ruther. And he said, I want to move your Jeffersonville game. I said, we can't. That's senior night. These seniors deserve that. We're not doing that. He said, no, you listen to me. I want to move it. We'll reschedule senior night. I want to move it downtown Louisville to Louisville Gardens. It seated 6,000 people. We play the game. Long story short, the Jeffersonville choir sung Back Home Again in Indiana. The Ballard ensemble sung My Old Kentucky Home. That's how we started the game. They were number 3 in the state. We were number 2 in Kentucky. That was that Indiana team with Sharon Wilkerson, with B.J. Flynn, coached by, oh my gosh, he just went to the Hall of Fame.
He lives in, he's the Mike
Broughton. Mike Broughton.
Yeah, Mike Broughton.
And we played that game in a sold-out Louisville Gardens, and it's one of the greatest high school atmospheres I've ever seen. And it was amazing. on to sing those two songs representative of the Indianapolis 500 of the Kentucky Derby and then play the game. And Jim Ruther came up with that idea, and it was high school basketball. It'll never be forgotten.
Oh, and it's that's a loud place in there because the roof has been, or the ceiling has been lowered a long time ago. And those, again, history right there. You just mentioned BJ Flynn. His dad was Mike Flynn, right?
Yes. And I coached
Mr. Basketball in Indiana
Marcus
for Jeffersonville.
Played on my first team ever at Bellarmine.
It's just crazy how everything is just tied together. Then Sharon Wilkerson, now the head coach at Jeffersonville after having played at Indiana.
Job. I coached BJ Flynn at Louisville, Marcus Flynn at Bellarmine, and Mike Flynn. I was just admired his game from Jeffersonville to the University of Kentucky, and then to coach the two sons. And Sharon has done, in the day and time when coaching high school, like you mentioned, it's very difficult. Sharon has done amazing. I
think he would be a heck of a college coach. I really do.
No question.
And I love Sharon. I love him as a person. He's one of the people I respect most in this life because, he had a time in his life where he could have gone a different direction, and he did a 180 like no one I've ever seen. And I just have so much respect for him because of that.
Well, you watch him coach his team. They are as well coached. And when I say that, that's a very broad statement. They are incredibly disciplined, and they are as respectful. We recruited two of their players. We didn't get them. But I'm telling you, they're as respectful young people as anywhere you'll find in high school basketball.
Absolutely. What are you going to not miss about coaching, going to the gyms in the summer when you don't, and recruiting and all that crazy stuff?
No, I really enjoyed the recruiting part because, in my opinion, the biggest lost art in college basketball is the ability to evaluate talent. That's a lost art. And when I say evaluate, but we probably, there's more than one way to be successful. That's the first lesson you ever learn in coaching. There's more than one way. But what we evaluate, it might be warm-ups. It might be body language. It might be a player during a timeout when things aren't going well. It might be a player picking a teammate up who's not having a great game. We look at things. How did he handle a tough loss? How did he embrace a great win? We evaluate things that were very, very important in our value system. So I won't miss that part. I liked watching that. Because when we evaluate those players, we took a young man out of Wrights Memorial, Dylan Penn. Dylan had one Division I interest, one. We take him, sign him. Dylan comes to us, leads us on March 8th, 2022, to the ASUN Conference Tournament Championship, which had never been done in the history of college basketball. Never been done, a transitioning team win the automatic bid to the NCAA tournament, even though we couldn't go like you mentioned. Dylan Penn had no offers. And he's playing professionally in Europe right now. And it's one of the most amazing stories ever. But we prided ourselves on that ability to evaluate talent.
Well, you had a lot of guys that would end up leaving and going to play, whether in Europe or wherever, that played professionally, because whether they came from wherever and had a good foundation, well, they had a hell of a lot better when they left, and they were winners. And that's the thing. They all became winners, and winners the right way. How many Division II titles and Final Fours did you guys make it to?
Won a national championship in 2011, went to 4 Final Fours. And what's important to me is in 2005, I took the job, and they had won 9 games. And 5 years later, we won a national championship. Braden Hobbs played 12 years in Europe at a very, very, very high level.
What, the New Albany High School, right?
New Albany High School. He was the 3rd leading scorer on a Division II team. But he won. He was one of the greatest locker room players, the locker room inhabitants you would ever have. And he plays 12 unbelievable years. Jeremy Kendall's still playing Jeremy Kendall, who's from Jeffersonville, still playing in Australia. Pedro Bradshaw playing in Australia at a very high level, that were all Division II players. Now, here's what's amazing. They all have a Bellarmine degree in their pocket.
Well, and you know what? That would be something for you to do in retirement. Now you can go visit all of these guys where they are.
If they hear you say that, they'll probably cancel your show.
No, say I'm sure they got a room for you, man.
That with a Bellarmine degree in their pocket.
Well, they're doing it with a Scotty Davenport degree, is what they're actually doing it with. If we want to be honest, because I know that great coaches like you. You're not alone, but great coaches like you, when their players leave, they're leaving with a degree, and it's not just basketball. It is basketball enveloped with life. And those are players that are going to do well in life because they're going to succeed at what they do, whether it's in business or on the floor, because they have a good head on their shoulders. And that comes from the coaching. It comes from the experiences they have from people like yourself.
I've always been a believer that you use every resource. Smart people wear people out that want to help them. If you go through a college basketball career and you take that education and you match that with attention to detail, with passion, with dedication that it takes to play college basketball, it's going to pay off. You think of this. We had 4 freshmen at Bellarmine this year. 3 of them started. They are going to work and apply these types of learning things I'm talking about probably past the year 2070. Do the math. They're 18 years old. Let's take that's 45 years. That would be 63 in 2070.
I don't think I'll be here.
But this is what coaching is. You know, everybody, it's college. Should be 4 of the greatest years of your life. But it should prepare you for the next 45 years of your life.
And the game has certainly changed now with the portal and NIL, especially at the highest levels. How much has that hurt the lower levels? Because they seem like almost a training ground of sorts now.
It depends how you handle it. We as a staff embraced the idea. And my son, who's going to be named the head coach at Bellarmine University today, Doug spearheaded the drive. Yeah, NIL is a real thing. Well, let's do it through internships where they get paid and be a Humana. ISCO, that's the Kirchdorfer family that owns Valhalla. Let's do it through Morgan Stanley, Tom Peroni, Will Wolford. Let's do it through Norton Healthcare. Let's do it through these corporate entities that, let's say they hire them the day they're out of Bellarmine, they have jobs. So they're getting paid. They're getting paid in college, but they're real. What it's doing, it's paving the way for a professional career off the court. If they play internationally, that's great. But why not get them paid on something that they can utilize in the real world? So we cultivate NIL, but we put a huge emphasis on internships. Jeff Wachtel, a player that played for us, went through an internship with a company that was early on in joint replacements, hips, shoulders, knees, right? He's now overseeing their company all over the southeastern part of the United States because everybody wants to live longer and live better. He played at Bellarmine. You know who he puts in internships? Our players.
It's a good way to do it. If you've got a few more minutes, I'd love to talk some NCAA basketball, as it's that time of year, and couldn't get a better perspective than yours, but I've got to take a break. You have a few more minutes?
Yes, sir.
I love you for it. We've got the great Scotty Davenport on, Bellarmine basketball coach emeritus, as he has just retired, and I won't say replaced. He has been augmented by his son And first of all, how incredible is that? I mean, I know that when you started coaching however many years ago, that was not a thought that was going to happen. And then all of a sudden, man, you have a great career of which now your son takes over.
Well, Doug was a high school student at Ballard. Our staff at Louisville, Coach Pitino's first staff, the assistants were Coach Mick Cronin, whose dad was a high school baseball coach scout for the Reds, Kevin Willard, whose dad was Coach Pitino's assistant at Kentucky, went on to
killing it at Maryland right now.
In Pittsburgh, now the head coach of Maryland. Well, think of that. There's three of us, and all our sons ended up being coaches. Or they were their dad, and now my son is going to be a coach. I mean, this is probably my favorite Rick Pitino first year story. And there's no online digital. When I left my house every morning, out of a jar, I picked up 2 quarters. At the corner of Floyd and Warnock, 2 blocks from U of L's campus, I pulled my car over, got a newspaper out of the newspaper stand at 5:40 a.m. every single morning. Go into my office, 3 sections of the paper, the features, the Metro, and the sports, or the front section, excuse me. And Kevin Willard had a section, I had a section, Mick had a section, and we sit there and just waited for Coach Pitino to say, okay, guys, let's go. They'd start our morning meeting. How much basketball you think was taught among Scott Davenport, Mick Cronin, and Kevin Willard every morning? Mick was 30. Kevin was 25. Now head coach of Maryland, head coach at UCLA, and I was 45.
Man, to be a fly on the walls there,
every
crazy.
Morning with a newspaper.
It's nuts. Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios on this Tuesday. Grateful to have former Bellarmine coach Scott Davenport with us as he has just announced his retirement. And what are you going to do next? Are you just going to chill, or do you have plan? Are you going to go into TV because you're a great character with great personality and you would be incredible on TV for basketball analysts and whatnot? And I'm sure you have plenty of opportunities, or you can just do nothing.
Well, one, I want to help Bellarmine. I will always continue to help Bellarmine in any way I can. If that's speaking on behalf of what the university stands for, if that's helping generate, income and donations, any way I can help. Secondly, I did a little radio thing this morning at early, and then I did a local TV that was a lot of fun. Now I'm doing you, and I'm going to do 4 miles the moment we hang up. I'm going to do 4 miles, and then I'm going to spend the rest of this day responding to an overwhelming number of emails and texts that I've received from mentors, from former players. It's impossible not to become emotional when you coached 47 years and 46 of them in this community.
Where was the other one that wasn't?
In Richmond at Virginia Commonwealth University at VCU.
I did not see that. When was that?
85, 86. Now, here's what you'll love. The head coach was Mike Polio, who went on to become an associate AD at the University of Louisville, whose son is Dr. Polio's, the superintendent of Jefferson County Public Schools. Our assistants, our staff was Eddie Webb, Coach Eddie Webb, whose dad was a legendary Hall of Fame Division III coach at Randolph-Macon. And the other assistant, besides myself, was Tubby Smith.
The connections never end.
They never end.
But that's what life is about. It's a spider web. It is a spider web of connections, and especially in athletics, in the coaching fraternity.
And then when I'm at Louisville, Coach Polio's the associate AD, and the great story was I was the only coach Coach Pitino had ever retained from a previous staff. And after I was retained, Coach Pitino says there was a large faction didn't want me to keep you. I looked
He's
at
probably
him
making
like,
that. He's probably
I
making
looked
that
at
up.
him like I thought people liked me. And he goes, "You want to know why?" And I said, "Yes, sir, coach. We were driving, recruiting." And he said, "Because they said you were so loyal to Coach Crum that I was making the biggest mistake I'd ever make." He didn't want to know what I told him. I said, "Yes, sir, I do." And he said, "He'll be that loyal to me too." And he kept me. And then I find out shortly after that one of that conversation was Coach Polio, who was associate AD under Tom Jurich, and Coach Pitino. And that conversation was held.
Well, speaking of Rick Pitino, he is doing it again. Probably the greatest coach in college basketball, one of the greatest ever, no doubt, but the greatest coach in basketball today in college basketball is taking this St. John's team and turn them into a top 10 team in his second season. Fun to watch this stuff. And I just love watching him work. The energy he has at 72, 3, 4, whatever he is amazing because he puts these 60-year-old coaches to shame. He is stalking the sidelines and he is so into those games, and I love it. But he's a winner, man. He wins.
Here's what he's great at. You remember, there's not a first, but the group that embraced the three-point shot, Coach Pitino, with that Providence team with Billy Donovan, Delray Brooks, there's no question. He embraced
former Indiana player, yeah.
Okay, now what dominates the game now? The three-point shot. It dominates the game, right? And
he was ahead of the curve.
What's he do? He defends like no team in the country. So when everybody zigs over here, he zags and goes the other way. He's the greatest at doing it.
Yeah,
so
they're fun to watch.
Everybody wants to shoot the three. Everybody wants to just be dribble offense. And he's going to become this defensive, he always has been a defensive-minded coach. But now that is his trademark where it was. So he evolves. He evolves better than anyone. He does.
And then you mentioned Willard earlier. Man, Maryland is
yes.
They're one of my sleeper teams in the NCAA tournament, but they're a team that I think could win the Big Ten tournament. They may be my favorite to win the Big Ten tournament. Michigan State is, I just don't think they're as strong as they have seen, but man, they've looked good. But Maryland has just slowly come on. Derek Queen, the big guy from Montverde Academy. I interviewed him several times when he was in school. Man, that dude is for real. He is, they've got a really good team put together, but Willard does a great job of mixing the interior and the perimeter play on that team.
But Jim, I'm going to say this to you. And one, nobody has more respect for Tom Izzo than I do. And I think he has a team that they want to be Michigan State. In this day and age, it's very difficult because a lot of players want you to become them. I think he's got players who want to become him.
He has a team.
And now, as far as Coach Willard, I spoke with Kevin at length the other day, and I'll give you a little tip. As Doug's announced this afternoon as the head coach at Bellarmine, it's obviously I've seen him, and it's incredibly emotional as a father. So with Doug's announcements going to come statements concerning Doug from Coach Pitino, Coach Willard, and Mick Cronin.
Very, very, very cool. Those are three names that
yes.
You'd love to get a backing from.
And in talking to Kevin, I can tell you this, he really likes his basketball team. And when a coach likes his team, the message that I get from that is they all want the same thing. And when everybody in that room wants the same thing and is willing to do whatever it takes to get it, that's going to be really powerful. So I agree with you on your assessment of Maryland. Now, UCLA and Mick, Coach Cronin caught a lot of flack that he was too hard on him. Well, let me tell you about it. And Mick and I talk all the time. Here's the strength of UCLA. Those players are embracing that Coach Cronin's doing things for them, that he's not doing things to them. He got ridiculed. He got ridiculed nationally that he's too hard on him and he's this, he's that. And I disagree, respectfully disagree, because those players understand he's doing it for them. He is not waking up in the morning saying, I'm going to go mess up this player. So, you know, give me a Mick Cronin, Kevin Willard game, and I'll sit at midcourt and wear both colors.
And it'll be a fun one to watch. Speaking of Mick Cronin, Indiana, of course, will have an opening at their head coach position at the end of this season. Mick Cronin, one of the names that is still being floated. Of course, he has a lot of ties back this way, whether it's at Cincinnati and the Louisville area and whatnot. I don't know how that will end up. I don't know how the job search will end up, but the circle seems to be getting a little smaller. Dusty May signing an extension at Michigan, but for the rest, I'm not sure where they're going to end up. But this is an opportunity for Indiana to kind of get back to being what they used to be. Now they're not going to. I'm not saying Bob Knight, because Bob Knight's not walking through that door, and his negatives aside, he was a coaching savant. So, and those just don't come along every day. But it's fun to watch the young coaches coach kind of old school and win. And I think fans just really, really love that. And but Indiana, boy, they are hungry for a winner.
Well, number one, you can never go wrong with Coach Mick Cronin. And Mick will make a decision based on his family and his daughter and what his priorities. So Mick's a phenomenal. He's a basketball coach. But I've never had this opportunity. But I think this format is the one that's perfect. So in 2011, Coach Knight is doing ESPN games. He has a 9:00 Friday night game. U of L's in Big East. It's UConn U of L here in Louisville at the Yum Center. Billy Reed, the longtime Hall of Fame journalist, was a season ticket holder at Bellarmine. I've known Billy my whole life. Billy calls me on Thursday and said, I'm going to offer you an opportunity, but you say one word to anyone and it's over. And I said, okay, you've got my word. He said, would you want Coach Knight to talk to your team tomorrow? I said, yes. And he says to me, if you say one word, it's over. I said, he said, I'm hanging the phone up. He calls me the next morning on Friday morning. He said, what time are you practicing? I said, 3:00. He said, I'll be there at 3:30. He said, I'm gonna park at that back door and come in. If one person knows a word, it's over. I'm getting back in the car and we're leaving. I don't tell a word. I don't tell an assistant. I don't tell an administrator. I don't tell my wife. I don't tell anybody. 3:35. Now you got to understand, we got 4 starters from Southern Indiana on that team. We got 8 players total on that team from Indiana. The back door of Knight's Hall, right left of the stage, walks in Billy Reed and Coach Bob Knight. He walks to midcourt and assesses and watches practice. Stands there. We finished practice. We were played on Thursday. We play on Saturday. So it's not a long, drawn-out practice. I walk over. I introduce myself. He said, this is unbelievable. I love this. He goes, I want to talk to these boys. I said, Coach, we'd be honored. You want to talk to them here in the locker room? I want them in the locker room. Walks in our locker room. Our locker room is not what it is now. We had an unbelievable supporter, Dr. Mark Lynn and his wife, built us a state-of-the-art, anywhere in the country locker room. This is our old locker room. Coach Knight stands there in front of that team. And the lockers are in an L shape. And he's right in the middle of that L where he can see him. I'm right over his shoulder where I can watch their eyes. And boy, he gets amped up. He starts really getting after it. And a phone rings.
Oh.
I'm looking around because this is 2011. I mean, it wasn't just commonplace. And I'm looking around like, I'm going to kill somebody. He reaches in his pocket, puts it back in his pocket, takes it out, puts it back in. It's his phone. He gets amped up again. And I mean, he's getting after him. It rings again. He answers the phone. He goes, I'm talking to the team. I'll call you. Exactly in that tone.
I'm sure.
He puts it back in his pocket. And now he becomes very soft-spoken. He said, any of you boys married? I mean, you know, college players, there may be an occasional player.
Yeah.
And they all look at him. No, sir. No, sir. He goes, well, when you do get married, that's how you handle that. That was my wife.
Yeah.
Now he gets up again. He finishes. And he's so imposing size-wise. He's finished, and every player stands up and walks up and gives him a firm handshake and thanks him. He turns to me. And he said, that's as impressive group of young men as I've talked to in years. I'm going to follow every game you play. Well, the assignment was by the next morning at our next walkthrough, they had to have a letter, typed thank you note to Coach Knight. I packaged them. I sent them off to him. I get the response. I still have it to this day. And he watched every game as that team won the national championship.
Incredible.
About 5 or 6 years ago, I'm at Indiana Downs. My son's father-in-law owned a horse in the Indiana Derby. Coach Knight's making an appearance. And I went over to him. I said, Coach, I just want to introduce myself. And I explained who I was, and I thanked him for coming. And he said, I'll never forget that team you coached. He said, you're one hell of a basketball coach, son. And I loved watching you. And he turns around to the people that are all with him and explains everything about that team. So, you know, you don't get to tell these stories. But now here's what's important. It's the most important thing about this. He didn't have to come to that locker room. It wasn't about money. Billy Reed convinced him that he would enjoy talking to these teams. He came in town to do a game. He did not have to come do that. To me, that defines an extraordinary individual.
Well, I know that I'm talking to an extraordinary individual, and I am grateful that you took the time to be with us. I am happy for you and look forward that you get to do whatever the heck you want to do every day going forward. And I look forward to hopefully having you back on here just to talk some hoops. One of the great minds. You need to write a book, you know, seriously, because there are only so many people that have the amount and the kinds of stories that you have. Not everybody has that. The majority of people do not have that, but they would love to read about it. And especially from your perspective, because I know it would be
you to say
tremendous.
That. I don't know if anybody would read it, but it's very nice of you to say that.
Oh, I am sure it would, because just the stories you've talked about here today are extraordinary. And I'm sure that doesn't even hit the tip of the iceberg. Well, brother, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy tournament week. And hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Well, anything I can ever do to help you. This is an honor because you understand this audience is so knowledgeable. Again, they can talk basketball. In going on the recruiting trail and recruiting throughout the state of Indiana, people come up. I mean, they know basketball. And I'm going to leave you with this. Here's how I got indoctrinated. I'm the JV coach at Ballard High School, and I've just started coaching. No, I was still at Aaron's, I think. Coach Bill Olson, Denny Crum's top assistant, who later became the athletic director at Louisville. He says, I'm going to go to a high school game. I want you to go with me Saturday night. It's Saturday night between Christmas and New Year's. I said, yes, sir, Coach, I'll go. I didn't even ask him where we're going. We get in the car. He goes, we're going to Newcastle. We stop and eat. We go watch Steve Alford play. And we go, they feed the team afterwards, and we're down there with talking to his dad, the team, Steve, everyone. And there was about 8,500 people on a Saturday night between Christmas and New Year's in that beautiful, unbelievable, iconic gym. And that was my indoctrination to Indiana high school basketball. Years later in Maui, I told Coach Alford the story, and I told his dad the story. And it was unbelievable that Coach Olson took me, just a JV coach. I'd been a walk-on player at U of L, and he knew me, and I worked camps for him. And he drives me up there to go experience what is the ultimate in high school basketball.
Well, you're the ultimate, brother. We appreciate you. I am so happy to get to talk to you, Scotty. It's an honor, and love you for your time today, buddy.
Well, thank you. I'm so appreciative to everyone. I am, and I'm gonna go run 4 miles.
Enjoy it, buddy. Appreciate you. Scotty Davenport joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Have a great day, sir. Man, that was just a blast. What an incredible person, much less a coach and everything else, leader of young men. But kind of a little unusual show today. More of a conversational, but enjoyed it. Enjoyed the heck out of it. Back tomorrow as the Big Ten tournament gets underway. Dylan Sin, Kyle Nedenrip, Rick Bozich will join us. Make sure you come back. We'll be here again as the tournament week is upon us. Thank you so much, everyone. Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
Hello, sports fans. Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Thank you for stopping by our YouTube channel. Make sure to hit the subscribe and notifications toggle so you never miss a thing. All of our content up here every day. Looking forward to it. Thank you, and we'll see you on the radio.